In 1927, Charles Lindbergh was not merely a pilot. He was myth. When he landed in Paris after completing the first solo nonstop transatlantic flight, the world erupted. Crowds swarmed him. Headlines crowned him the embodiment of American courage. He was young, soft-spoken, disciplined, and impossibly brave. He represented modernity, aviation, the future. Then came Anne Mark, intelligent, literary, equally daring. Their marriage created something rare, a celebrity couple admired for intellect and heroism rather than scandal. When their son was born in 1930, the press named him the Eagle's son. But fame in the 1930s was intrusive, ruthless. There were no boundaries. Reporters followed them everywhere. Strangers wrote letters daily. Threats occasionally arrived. Charles feared kidnapping long before it happened. That fear would prove prophetic. Seeking isolation, the Lindberghs built a secluded home in Hopewell, New Jersey, surrounded by woods, away from Manhattan's press frenzy. It was meant to be refuge. Instead, it became the setting of America's most infamous crime. The weather was damp and cold. Wind pressed against the house. Inside, the atmosphere was ordinary. At 7:30 p.m., Nurse Betty Gow placed Charles Jr. into his crib. He had a slight cold, nothing alarming. At approximately 9 p.m., Charles Lindbergh heard a sharp sound, like wood breaking. He assumed it was a kitchen crate dropped by staff. At 10 p.m., the nurse returned to check the baby. The crib was empty. Blankets remained neatly folded. The window was open. On the sill, mud. Below the window, impressions in the soil. And leaning against the house, a crude, handmade ladder. Inside the nursery, placed on the radiator, was a 2-page ransom note demanding $50,000. The handwriting was erratic. Misspellings were deliberate, or perhaps foreign. The note bore 2 blue circular symbols intersecting with red, a signature of sorts. Police were called. But in 1932, crime scene preservation was primitive. Neighbors walked through the house. Reporters roamed outside. Fingerprints were smudged. Evidence was handled without gloves. The crime scene contaminated within hours. From the first night, mistakes were made that could never be undone. The kidnapping spread across newspapers like wildfire. Radio broadcasts interrupted programming. America became obsessed. Kidnapping, once considered a regional crime, suddenly felt national. If the son of the most famous man in the world could be taken from his crib, no one was safe. Thousands of tips flooded in. False sightings. Confessions from unstable individuals. Underworld figures offering assistance. Organized crime bosses even proposed negotiating on Lindbergh's behalf. President Herbert Hoover was briefed. The case became federal. Yet despite the frenzy, there was one persistent silence. The kidnappers did not immediately respond. Then, a breakthrough. Dr. John F. Condon, a retired Bronx school principal, entered the story in an unexpected way. He wrote a letter to the newspaper offering to act as intermediary. Amazingly, the kidnappers replied. Through coded newspaper ads, communication began. Condon was instructed to meet in a cemetery. Picture the scene. A dark Bronx cemetery. Midnight. Wind moving through headstones. A shadow emerged. Condon later described the man as speaking with a German accent. He called himself John. The man claimed the child was alive and safe. The ransom was increased to $70,000.
Hey guys, so I'm in the Bronx. It took me freaking forever. The turnpike was backed up. The George Washington Bridge was backed up. The Bronx River Parkway was backed up. So, you know. So I'm here to show you the drop site of where this ransom was. Now, I found the particular area. However, I'll just show you. All right. We're on Whitmore Avenue. And right in here was where the drop was. You can't really see anything from this side. But if you look at the pictures, you'll see these railings. I'm gonna try to get in there, and we'll see what happens. All right, let's go look inside. All right. So we made it on the inside, and this cemetery is absolutely gorgeous. There's an old receiving vault. They used to use those in the winter time to store the bodies when the ground was just too cold to break. So this is the strip where they had the drop. Gorgeous. And there you go. That's it. So as you can tell, there's nothing here. Whitmore Avenue is very quiet, and we're in between. So the other St. Raymond's is right across the street. Not here. Right there. So there's a St. Raymond's Old and a St. Raymond's New. So yeah, this would have been a spot. And there's no street lights. I guess it's a great place for a drop. The street, Whitmore, doesn't even have street lights. I'm not too sure about hopping up. Where am I going? Up there, because it's everything is still super soggy. The snow is finally melting. So, but I got some news for you guys. So since I'm here, look at my channel for some new stuff, because since I'm at St. Raymond's, I'm going to visit a couple other people. I just went to Valentina Suriani.
Turn left toward East Tremont Avenue.
Really? She was one of the victims from the Son of Sam murders, and I just went to her grave. Billie Holiday is here. I'm gonna go visit her. Anybody likes boxing, or if you're Puerto Rican, Hector Macho Camacho, he's in here. Frankie Lyman, he was his voice was beautiful back in the 60s, but unfortunately he overdosed at his grandmother's house, and his wife had to find him. Frankie Lyman, Billie Holiday. But look for it. Thank you guys for coming. I appreciate this ride together, and look out for more. Take care.
The Lindberghs agreed. On April 2nd, 1932, the ransom, mostly in gold certificates, was delivered in the cemetery. Condon handed it to the shadowed man. The kidnapper gave instructions for retrieving the child aboard a boat off Martha's Vineyard. Authorities searched. There was no boat. The money was gone. The child was gone. Hope began to fade. On May 12, 1932, a truck driver stopped along a roadside just miles from the Lindbergh home. In the woods lay skeletal remains. The skull was fractured. The child had likely died the night of the kidnapping, perhaps from a fall. Some investigators believed the ladder broke while descending. Others believed the blow was intentional. The body was identified as Charles Jr. The nation mourned in collective shock. Now it was no longer about ransom. It was murder. The case stalled. Investigators re-examined the ransom notes. They analyzed grammar patterns. They tracked serial numbers of the gold certificates. Then, in 1934, a gas station attendant in Manhattan noticed something strange. A customer paid with a gold certificate. Gold certificates were rare, withdrawn from circulation. The attendant wrote down the license plate. It led to the Bronx apartment of Bruno Richard Hauptmann. Inside his garage, police found $14,600 of the ransom money hidden in walls and boxes. Hauptmann was arrested. He denied everything. He claimed the money belonged to a deceased associate. But investigators believed they had finally found their man. In January 1935, the trial began in Flemington, New Jersey. The town was overwhelmed. Reporters packed the courthouse. Cameras flashed constantly. The prosecution presented the ransom money in Hauptmann's possession, handwriting experts claiming he wrote the notes, wood experts stating the latter matched lumber from his attic. Charles Lindbergh testified, identifying Hauptmann's voice as the one he heard in the cemetery. The defense attacked the forensic methods. They argued contamination. They suggested planted evidence. They highlighted investigative bias. But public opinion was already shaped. After weeks of testimony, the jury deliberated for 11 hours. Guilty. Hauptmann was sentenced to death. He maintained innocence until his execution in 1936. He never confessed. Over time, questions emerged. Were handwriting experts reliable? Was the ladder wood analysis truly conclusive? Could ransom money have been planted? Why did police dismiss alternate suspects so quickly? Some researchers argue Hauptmann likely participated, but not alone. Others believe he was a scapegoat in a case under enormous public pressure. Files were sealed for decades. The Lindbergh family retreated from American life. The media moved on. But the debate never truly ended. The kidnapping changed America. It led to the Federal Kidnapping Act, the Lindbergh Law. Kidnapping across state lines became a federal offense. It marked a turning point in forensic science. It demonstrated the power and danger of media influence. It revealed how celebrity can distort justice. And it left behind a question that still lingers nearly a century later. Was Bruno Hauptmann the monster history remembers? Or was the truth more complicated? The Lindbergh Baby Kidnapping was more than a crime. It was a national trauma. In 1932, America was already struggling through the Great Depression. Banks were failing. Families were losing homes. Faith in institutions was fragile. And then, the child of the nation's greatest hero was taken from his crib. It shattered the illusion that fame, wealth, or status could shield anyone from evil. The image of that wooden ladder leaning against the nursery window became a symbol, not just of a crime, but of vulnerability. For months, Americans followed every headline as if the child were their own. They waited for good news. They prayed for a miracle. Instead, they received a funeral. The trial that followed was equally historic. It revealed how powerful public opinion could be. Cameras flashed, newspapers printed speculation as fact, Experts clashed. The courtroom became theater. Was Bruno Hauptmann a calculating killer? Was he part of something larger? Or was he a convenient answer in a country desperate for closure? Even today, historians debate the evidence. Handwriting analysis has evolved. Forensic science has advanced. Investigative standards have changed. But the doubts remain, because once a case is shaped by media frenzy and public pressure, separating truth from narrative becomes nearly impossible. The Lindbergh kidnapping changed federal law. It reshaped criminal investigations. It influenced how high-profile cases are handled even now. It marked the birth of modern true crime obsession. But beyond legislation and legacy lies something quieter and more haunting. A nursery, a crib, a broken ladder in the dark, a parent standing beneath a window realizing the unthinkable has happened. Nearly a century later, that image still unsettles us. Because at its core, this was not just the crime of the century. It was a reminder that evil does not always announce itself, that justice is not always as certain as headlines suggest, and that history, even when written in bold type across front pages, may still leave questions unanswered. Who truly took him? Did the right man die for the crime? Or does the full truth remain buried somewhere in sealed files and fading memories? Perhaps we will never know. But the story endures. Not because of celebrity, not because of spectacle, but because it forces us to confront something deeply human, our need for answers, our fear of uncertainty, and our hope, however fragile, that justice prevails. This was the Lindbergh Baby Kidnapping, a tragedy that changed America, a case that defined an era, and a mystery that still echoes through history. Thank you all again for watching another video from Tales from the Tombs NJ. Please help me by liking and subscribing, and tell me a story you want to hear about. Until next time.
I won't run from the storm. I arrive after it.